Good morning, Phil. Donna, you look great.
Oh, thank you so much. I feel wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We just have a little battle on our hands right now. I went to the oncologist Wednesday, and so we're going to do, because it has spread, we're doing 4 months of chemo, 2 months of radiation, and then hopefully we get that far to get to meds. So I'll be losing my hair pretty soon. But there's a good fight in this, so we'll do it.
Good.
We love you, Donna.
My kids had the greatest time rubbing over my head when I had lost all my hair. As lucky as it was.
It's coming back in. Yeah. Well, everybody has plans for me. Deju, of course, is doing some wraps, and my twin boys want to get us matching caps, and of course the girls want wigs, and I'm going, oh, I don't know about the wig, but we'll see. So it's going to be an adventure.
Well, when it comes back, if it was like me, you won't need a permanent. Your hair was very curly.
Did it last though? I mean, like
it lasted quite a while, but
okay.
then it opened again. But I still have more waves than I had before.
That'll be wonderful. Then I'll look forward to that part.
Good to see you, Kathy and Linda.
Hello.
Hi, Joe's here, and Bobby and Ron are here.
Good to see everybody. I know it's been a while.
Are you working, Kathy?
Well, I am working, but I was also on vacation. I was up on the we took our little travel trailer and traveled down the Oregon coast.
Oh,
wow, nice. It's beautiful.
Oh, it was beautiful. Yeah, if anybody has the opportunity, it's gorgeous.
Yeah. We've done that. One of our favorite places was Coos Bay.
Coos Bay, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Love Coos Bay.
Yeah.
Kathy, is it foggy there?
Yeah, yes, it's foggy and it's in the 60s, which actually felt good.
It'll be 100 degrees here, so you enjoy the cool.
Yes, I'm back now, so.
Oh, you are back.
Yes, yes, and we were gone during the 110, so.
yeah. Good time.
Yeah.
Well, it's so nice seeing everybody join in.
Yes.
I also figured out how to share the link to the YouTube live stream on Facebook so people can get to it that way too.
Wow.
Hi, Helen and Sarah.
Oh, I see Helen on. Hi, Helen.
Hi, Helen.
Well, there's Helen. Good morning, Helen.
And there's Sarah too. Hi, Sarah.
Oh.
Hi, Phil.
Good to see you.
Hey, Marjorie.
How is it being at home, Marjorie? Oh, she's muted.
Virginia and Christy.
Yeah, hi. Hi, Kathy.
Hi, how are you?
Back from your trip, huh?
I'm back. Yes, yes, had a wonderful time. Yeah. Back to reality, the 100 degree and the smoke, unfortunately.
Yeah. Been better these past few days, though.
Oh, it's cleared up. Blue sky.
Good morning, Joel and Tracy and Benjamin.
Hey, look, David's out of the room. He's with the family. I just noticed that.
Oh, there
Welcome
we are.
back to everybody.
Morning. Good morning.
Morning, Elizabeth.
There's Elizabeth. Hi, Elizabeth.
And Tony. Good morning, Tony.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Tony, you're muted.
There you go. Good morning.
Good
Sorry
morning.
about that.
Good to have you.
How are things going, Tony?
Oh, they're going pretty well. I mean, we're surviving Zoom life.
I know. Getting kicked out of your own class. I kind of was laughing with my class. I said that never happens. The kids normally get booted out, but the
Yeah.
teacher got booted.
Oh yeah, that happened like last week. Like what was it, Monday and Tuesday?
I know. I'd pop back in and I'd be like, I'm back.
You guys ought to try Google, Microsoft Teams, where the kids are making their own team meetings, and they're all going to those and not to ours.
That's great.
And really fun.
We got word this week that students are taking screenshots of their teachers and posting them on Instagram and on all sorts of different media platforms, but they'll like draw a mustache on a teacher
Oh.
or something like that.
What fun.
And worse things.
Or they'll screenshot where their teacher is like, and then put it on there.
That's
I
fun.
see Margie on there. I
Yeah.
understand you're home, Margie. So good to see you.
Good to see everybody.
Yeah, you look great, Marjorie. Oh,
My kids in Santa Cruz had their classes canceled this last week because of the fires, and so many of the kids had been evacuated, and teachers as well. So they didn't even have these class this last week at all.
Wow.
Wow.
well, Jaden up in Sonoma has been put on standby for evacuation, but so far so good. So,
Fingers crossed.
yeah.
Wow.
I just want to give a special shout out to Amy and Carol for a great pick me up yesterday. Thank you very, very much. It was very nice. All of you again, thanks for your cards and texts. I don't know, they just seem to come at the right moment. I'll get a text from somebody out of the clear blue, and I so appreciate all of them. So thank you.
Hi,
Hi,
Helen. and
Lori TJ. In Helen's Square.
Lori.
There's Helen.
Hey, I'm just crashing your.
Oh.
Is it TJ Tinyman with you, Helen? Okay, I just see the head.
You need to see all of me to know it's me?
Maybe. I don't know. Haven't seen you in, God, I can't remember how long. Couple of months, maybe.
Yeah, probably. I saw you at Christie.
Your hair looks different. That's
Oh, well, this is COVID hair.
curly.
It's all back in the clipped back. Oh, please mute.
I can't hear Amy. I know she's unmuted, but I'm not hearing anything.
Check your mute. I just had to turn mine on. It default turned it on when I logged in. So lower left of your screen.
But it's not showing she's muted, but I couldn't hear her.
I can hear you.
You can hear me, but not Amy. Can you hear Amy?
Yeah, I could hear Amy.
Okay.
I couldn't.
Oh, no, now. Yeah, I couldn't either. Now, I thought maybe it was someone else. Amy, you might want to unmute yourself, lower left. Nope. No, try to unmute your machine. You can also, the computer you're looking on can also be muted. Sometimes you run into that when I'm Skype calling.
Why don't I try to do the announcements as I remember them, and anyone can back me up if I forget something. I know we're coming, if everyone can hear me, give me a thumb. Okay, so I know we're coming up on, we've sold quite a few masks. We've almost broken even on the fundraiser. So we're not gonna cut off sales tomorrow. We're gonna keep that going until we sell them all. We've got about 40 more available, I believe. Another announcement is we have our homecoming Sunday coming up on September 12th, I believe, and we will have some special guests from years past that will be joining us that week. Usually that's the kickoff to, when we all come back together after summer, but it's kind of a different year this year, but it's important to honor our traditions. And so we've found some creative new ways to continue that tradition. And what other announcements, and can anyone think of something?
Yes, Marilyn will be starting office hours Monday through Thursday, I believe from 9 to 2. The hours will vary, but she will be there to answer the phone or if you have things to drop off to the office. So that's coming up next week.
And were there any other announcements? Amy, you could throw it in the chat if there's something we've forgotten. We're good? Okay, those are our announcements for this week. Council, we have council meeting for church leadership will be Thursday evening, the first Thursday of this month. So that will be happening, okay? And now we'll do our welcome song.
You are welcome into this place. You are welcome into this place. You are welcome into this house of God. You are welcome into this place. You are welcome into this place. You are welcome into this house of God. You are welcome into this place. You are welcome into this place. You are welcome into this house of God.
Look over there. The spark of God's presence calls to us. Look all around. The light of God's love is in each person present. Look deep within. The light of God's creativity and compassion are part of our being. God is calling for our curiosity and our attention. In this time of worship, let us recognize the flame of God's presence everywhere. We must be standing on holy ground. May we celebrate that we are standing on holy ground.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ervis.
My name is Rossi.
And today we're going to be talking about courage.
In life, you're going to encounter many new things, whether it is going to a new school or going somewhere that you've never been before. But you always got to remember that a lot of the times when you do something new, it will help you out in the future.
Like Rossi said, new things are always going to be scary no matter what they are. And you always have to trust in God. God will always put you in the right path. He'll always point you in the right direction. And you always have to remember that.
When me and Nervous first started doing children's time, I was pretty nervous to start doing it because I wasn't the best speaker. But as we started to do it more, I became more comfortable in front of the camera and started to become more social. God will always bring new things into your life, and He will always be there with you. And you gotta appreciate these things, whether they are big or small.
Remember to always have courage for anything and everything. And we hope you have a great day!
We do not always see that we should be moving about our days and lives and places with awe and reverence and wonder, with the same soft steps with which we enter the room of a sleeping child or the mysterious silence of a cathedral. There is no ground that is not holy ground. By Robert Benson, Between the Dreaming and the Coming True.
Next, we will do the invitation to giving. Eris and I like to give our time to the church for many reasons. Since we started to come here, we've always felt very welcomed.
Everyone has always made us feel accepted and supported. The more Sundays we came, we started to realize that giving was important. We saw so many people giving their time to speak during church, or we saw the people putting together the activities that we did as a church.
Eventually, we decided that we wanted to be more involved. This was because we wanted to show our appreciation and love for our church. Whether it's something like bringing in the light from when we actually would go to church, or being a part of worship planning, or doing children's time every week.
Being involved is how we give, because it's not like we can give money, but because we don't have any. But if we did, we give some too. Because giving money helps pay the bills and also helps our church function so it can be there for everyone, like they've been there for us and our family.
To give, you can download the Givelify app and search for the Community United Church of Christ.
You can also visit the church website and click on Joyful Giving.
Or you can just mail a check.
Because no matter how you give, God appreciates it. And the church appreciates it, and so do we. Let us pray. Over here, gracious giver, here we are burning your breath or your burning bush. With hearts aflame with good intention, we give from our abundance and celebrate the ways your spirit is alive in our souls. Bless this offering toward healing and a new life. Amen.
Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart. Not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought by day or by night. Waking or sleeping, thy presence my life. Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart. Not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought by day or by night. Waking or sleeping, thy presence my life. Riches I need not, nor vain empty praise. Thou mine inheritance now and always. Thou and thou only first in my heart. Great God of heaven, my treasure thou art. Great God of heaven, my victory won. May I reach heaven's joys, oh bright heaven's sun. Heart of my own heart, whatever befall, still be my vision, oh ruler of all. I've seen the world, I've seen the way the people walk, in different places how they talk. The similarities are stark, there's no escape from the humanity we share. There's not a reason to be scared, to just admit that you have noticed too. When you look into my eyes, what do you see? You or me, we are one. We live beneath the common sun, dance beneath the moon. The natural things we do, they make us one. And I'm convinced when life is done, the mystery revealed will simply be that we are one. Just take my hand, feel the roughness of my skin. Family, you and I are kin. You can't keep out what's deep within. You know the truth, that you and I and all the earth are bonded by a common birth. It's God who gives each life its sacred worth. A sheep alone is not take my hand, we are one. We live beneath the common sun, dance beneath the moon. The natural things we do, they make us one. And I'm convinced when life is done, the mystery revealed will simply be that we are one. Simply be that we are
Good morning, everyone. Today's God is Still Speaking comes to us from Exodus chapter 3, verses 1 through 15. Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro, the priest of Midian. He led his flock beyond the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. There, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of a bush. He looked, and the bush was blazing, yet it was not consumed. Then Moses said, I must turn aside and look at this great sight and see why the bush is not burned up. When the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, Come no closer, remove the sandals from your feet, for the place on which you are standing is holy ground. He said further, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. Then the Lord said, I have observed the misery of my people who are in Egypt. I have heard their cry on account of their taskmasters. Indeed, I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them from the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey, to the country of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. The cry of the Israelites has now come to me. I have also seen how the Egyptians oppress them. So come, I will send you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt? He said, I will be with you, and this shall be the sign for you that it is I who sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall worship God on this mountain. But Moses said to God, If I come to the Israelites and say to them, the God of your ancestors has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? Then what shall I say to them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. He said further, thus you shall say to the Israelites, I am has sent me to you. God also said to Moses, thus you shall say to the Israelites, the Lord, the God of your ancestors, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has sent me to you. This is my name forever, and this my title for all generations.
Good morning. And thank you, Aaron, for reading our scripture this morning. So this morning, I'm going to start off with a really bad joke, and I figure we can just go uphill from there. So here it goes. God told Moses, take off your shoes, Moses, and approach the burning bush. And Moses did and burnt his feet. And God said, ha, third one today. So let's move on from there. Okay, this morning we continue our study of Exodus, which derives from the Latin word meaning exit or departure. And in the context of this story, it holds the meaning of being liberated from bondage. As we recall from last week's scripture, Moses' life was saved because of some amazing, courageous women. This being only the beginning of the Exodus narrative. But before we get into this morning's scripture, we need to get caught up on what's been happening. First, there is the birth and dangerous rescue of Moses from the context of Egyptian slavery. Then Moses is raised by the Pharaoh's daughter in the Pharaoh's house, but cared for by his Hebrew mother, which Moses knew nothing about. Then as a young man, he witnesses the beating of a Hebrew slave by an Egyptian. Risking everything, Moses intervenes and kills the perpetrator, becoming a fugitive. Moses's compassion and courage, not unlike the midwives and other women from the beginning of this Exodus story, begin to shape the man of God he will live into. In chapter 3, we find Moses in exile. His exile being the direct result of his questioning of the abuse of his people. Moses has now started a new life, a new family, and is making his living as a shepherd for his Midianite father-in-law in the land of Midian, in the shadow of Mount Horeb, in the mountain as the mountain of God, also known as Sinai. So Moses is way out beyond the wilderness by the mountain of God. He's out there minding his own business and taking care of a flock of sheep, when all of a sudden he comes across this burning bush. Amazed by the fact that this bush is burning up, but at the same time it's not being consumed by the fire. Could this be a mirage? I mean, it must have been pretty hot out there. Maybe his eyes were playing a trick on him. He moved closer to inspect the bush, as his curiosity moved him to try to figure out why the bush is not burned up. But Moses' inspection is stopped quickly when God gets Moses' attention by calling out his name. Moses answers, "Here I am." God then tells him not to come any closer and to remove his sandals from his feet, as the place on which he is standing is holy ground. God tells him who he is. "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob." And God starts telling Moses all about observing the misery of God's people who are in Egypt, that God has heard their cry on account of their taskmasters. God explains further that knowing the Israelites' sufferings has led God to come and deliver them from the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land to a good and broad land, a land of milk and honey. J. Gerald Jansen writes that a biblical faith tells the story with the conviction that every cry with the individual throb of suffering it expresses is falling, cry for cry, not on deaf ears, but on the heart of God. If God is hidden, God is hidden within the suffering. And we might even examine a bit closer in our own world today, that idea of God is hidden within the suffering, but more on that later. Now we get down to the nitty-gritty, which I'm sure Moses had to be curious about. I mean, here's this burning bush and God is talking to him. So Moses had to be wondering, what does this have to do with me? And God says, "I'm sending you to Pharaoh to bring my people, the Israelites, out of Egypt." But Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the Israelites out of Egypt?" You know, it's not too sure that God's picked the right person for this job. God said, "I will be with you. And this shall be the sign for you that it is I who sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall worship God on this mountain." Without the curiosity of Moses from his encounter with the Holy, without a spirit willing to explore, wonder, and be open to what he was unable to understand, there probably would be no voice calling out to him. The questioning, the curiosity, and the sacred place in which he encounters the holy voice of God all go hand in hand. What's more, the curiosity and the experience of holiness are inseparable from what comes next. The call of God for Moses to be God's agent of justice and liberation for the people. It may have seemed to the Hebrews that God had moved on, just as Moses had sought to move on, leaving the agony of the Israelites behind. However, God was listening to the cry of their oppression. When this questioning, curiosity-driven son of Pharaoh's daughter shows up, God calls upon Moses to speak out on behalf of justice. Holy curiosity that leads one in the ways of God is necessarily accompanied by the type of humility that removes one's sandals on holy ground, and also humility which acknowledges one's own weakness and limitations. It should come as no surprise that Moses humbly responds with an apprehension at this justice liberation call. According to this week's text, Moses hears from God a word that is spoken to all whose curiosity brings them to holy ground, and the call to be agents of justice. I will be with you. I'm sure God has been hearing the cries and suffering of God's people from the empires of today, the cries from the borders, from women and children, from indigenous people, from the LGBTQ community, from people of color. I wonder, does it have to be a burning bush to get our attention to hear God's call? Or might we examine a bit closer in our own world today the idea that God is hidden within the suffering? On June 28th, in 1969, at the Stonewall Inn in Greenwich Village neighborhood of Manhattan, New York City, a police raid began a series of spontaneous violent demonstrations known as the Stonewall Riots. Children of God stood up against the continued violence of the LGBTQ community. Take your shoes off. This is holy ground. And people heard God's call as those riots started one of the most important events leading to the gay liberation movement and the fight for LGBTQ rights in the United States. A year after the uprising, to mark the anniversary on June 28, 1970, the first gay pride marches took place in New York, Los Angeles, and San Francisco. The anniversary of the riots was also commemorated in Chicago, and similar marches were organized in other cities. Within a few years, gay rights organizations were founded across the US and the world. The Stonewall National Monument was established at the site in 2016. In 1973, Lambda Legal became the first legal organization established to fight for the equal rights of gays and lesbians. And in the same year, the American Psychiatric Association removes homosexuality from its list of mental disorders in the Manual of Mental Disorders. In 1995, the Hate Crime Sentencing Enhancement Act goes into effect. And in 2009, Obama signs the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act into law. In 2012, the Democratic Party becomes the first major US political party in history to publicly support same-sex marriage on a national platform at the Democratic National Convention. In 2015, the US Supreme Court struck down all state bans on same-sex marriage and legalized it in all 50 states. In 2019, Billy Porter became the first openly gay Black man to win the Emmy for the Best Lead Actor in a Drama Series. And in 2020, the Supreme Court rules that federal law protects LGBTQ workers from discrimination. This landmark ruling extends protections to millions of workers nationwide. There is still so much more to do, but hearing the call is the first step. On February 14th, 2018, at Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, 17 children of God were killed and more were injured. And the people heard God say, "Take your shoes off. This is holy ground." God's call was heard, and a movement began by the youth of the Stoneman Douglas High School to make changes in our current gun laws. They began the March for Our Lives March, and there were some changes to gun laws in some states, like raising the age limit for buying guns to 21, criminal background checks, and some states banned bump stocks, which have been used in massive shootings. And 11 states passed laws in 2018 that restrict gun access to people linked to domestic violence. And 8 states, plus the District of Columbia, created ways to temporarily keep guns from dangerous or at-risk people. There is still so much more to be done, but hearing the call is our first step. In December of 2018, at the United Nations Climate Change Conference in Katowice, Poland, and again in September 2019, at the United Nations Climate Action Summit in New York, New York, a child of God spoke. Greta Thunberg heard the call of action toward our earth, our air, our water, our land. She heard God say, "Take your shoes off. This world is holy ground." Through the voice of this young woman, a movement towards climate change was heard. And there is still so very much more for us to do. But of course, hearing the call is our first step. On May 25th, 2020, at 38th Street and Chicago Avenue in Minneapolis, Minnesota, there under the knee of police officer Derek Chauvin was a child of God. And soon after, the world heard God's call, loud and clear, as George Floyd released his last breath. Take your shoes off. This is holy ground. God's call was heard and people came. They came by the thousands to make known that Black lives matter and that justice needs to be done, that God's children must be cared for, that laws and structures must change so that the equality for all may be truly lived out. There may not have been an actual burning bush, but there definitely was a call from God to God's people to do something, and they did. They protested with one message: Black lives matter. People protested in all 50 states and in 50 countries around the world. The police officers who were involved in the death of George Floyd have been charged, and some other race-related police shootings are being investigated. In the United States and in the United Kingdom, statues and monuments of people with links to slavery have been taken down. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi ordered the portraits of 4 former House speakers who served in the Confederacy removed from the US Capitol. Pelosi told reporters the removal of the portraits on Juneteenth, coincided with the day in 1965 when enslaved people in Texas learned of their freedom 2 years after the emancipation. Many of the world's biggest brands have pledged their support for Black Lives Matter movement. In some states, police departments are making changes such as banning chokeholds and neck restraints and no-knock warrants. Trump signed an executive order on police reform, which calls for higher professional standards, training on de-escalation techniques, and use of force. It also establishes co-respondent services, a system in which officers would pair with social workers when responding to nonviolent calls. Unfortunately, the order does not address the link between racism and police brutality. Some programs have been taken off streaming platforms that contain racially insensitive or inappropriate characters. NASA renamed its Washington, D.C. headquarters after Mary W. Jackson, the space agency's first Black aerospace engineer and mathematician. Quaker Oats announced it was retiring its Aunt Jemima brand of pancake mixes and syrups after 131 years. The manufacturers of Uncle Ben's rice, cream of wheat porridge, Mrs. Butterworth's syrup, and the Eskimo Pie ice cream brand are also considering renaming or retiring their products. National Football League Commissioner Roger Goodell acknowledged that the NFL had made mistakes by not listening to players who complained about racism. The Washington Redskins removed founder and avowed segregationist George Preston Marshall from all official team material, as well as deleting his name from the stadium's Ring of Fame. and NASCAR vowed to do better in addressing racial injustice. People are speaking out about the everyday racism and discrimination they are faced. And many people are beginning to understand white privilege and the many ways they have participated in the continuation of systemic racism. Unfortunately, this past weekend in Kenosha, 2 Wisconsin police officers were put on leave last Monday as state authorities investigate why Jacob Blake, a 29-year-old Black man, was shot multiple times in the back as he entered the driver's side of an SUV. Jacob Blake was shot in front of his 3 children, ages 3, 5, and 8, who were in the car. Blake may never walk again. There is still so much more to do, but may we continue to hear God's call. As we look around, we may never see an actual burning bush, but we might take some time to listen and wonder about God's call in our own lives. If we seek God's presence, we might find ourselves participating in a call much larger than we could ever think possible. The healing of creation, the healing of God's children, becoming an agent of justice. And like Moses, we may at first feel we aren't enough, or we might spend some time debating, why me? Why was I called? From Sermon Seeds, Catherine Matthews writes, our culture tells us that we should be independent and self-sufficient. We just have to make it on our own. But Walter Brueggemann thinks we are only fooling ourselves. For like Moses, we are not autonomous. There is the one who knows us and calls us by name, even while we imagine we are unknown and unsummoned. So the question will be, do we have the courage to listen and respond, trusting that wherever we are called to go or whoever we are called to be, we can be absolutely sure we will never be alone. God will always be with us. And for a moment, if you would, let's imagine Moses coming down from that mountain, from that place of mystery, from that holy ground, soaked in grace, never alone, and never again the same. May our lives never be the same as well. Amen.
Where do we find the source of light or the well of mercy? Who installed stars into the night? Every small thing upon the earth is the fruit of your love. I am a soul of your design. We need your grace. We need your grace. We raise our hands to you, oh God. We need your grace. Where do we find the strength to rise, standing up for mercy? Doing the work of holy justice. How do we walk with you beside, humbled in your presence? Why do I feel this way inside? God, we need your grace. God, I miss chances every day to do what's right. Sometimes I even look away. Give me your spirit so that I can do what's right in a dark world. We need your grace. We need your grace. We raise our hands to you, oh God. We need your grace. We need your grace. We need your grace. We raise our hands to you, oh God. We need your grace.
Let us lift these prayers up. Continued prayers of healing and love for Donna Wright and her family. Joe Mack asked for prayers for his boss at Taco Bell, who has been under quarantine for the past 2 weeks. May he have a safe return back to work. God, hear our prayers. Continued prayers for Peter Sharkey. God, hear our prayers. Prayers for all children, for their well-being, and also for all the teachers. God, hear those prayers. Prayers for anxious folks as we head closer to the election. God, hear our prayers. And prayers that we might live in love and not in fear. God, hear our prayers. God of mystery, you have caught our attention today. We have noticed your flickering presence in our midst, and we recognize we abide on holy ground. We bring our compassionate curiosity to you. We bring our often reluctant but honest, caring hearts and ask, where are we that you should call us? Open our eyes to the ways life is being consumed and requires protection. Encourage us in the promise of new life beyond the pain. We lift our hearts to all who suffer under the oppression of social systems, societal systems. We lift our prayers for all who struggle in physical pain and anguish. We lift our voices in solidarity with all who are imprisoned in body, mind, or spirit. And we strive to lift our beings in willingness to say yes to your invitation to help. May the holy ground on which we stand today empower our steps toward the journey of healing in which we have been placed as your people. May the energy of your earth reach into our beings and give us the strength to say yes again and again and again. May the burning bushes all around us continue to call out for attention and transformation until the new life they reflect is fulfilled. Bless us for this journey, we pray. Help us always to embrace the curiosity. Please join me in the Lord's Prayer. Our loving God, creator of life, praise be to your name. May your purpose be fulfilled. Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. From your bounty, may we find nourishment sufficient for each day's needs, for both body and spirit. As we accept your grace and forgiveness, may we also learn to be gracious and forgiving. Lead us away from those temptations that entice us to do evil, and teach us your way of loving kindness. May all creation come to acknowledge your tender care and your abiding presence, now and forever. Amen. You who speak into the mystery of the universe, creating life out of chaos, you invite us to look at our world with wonder, humility, and an unrelenting commitment to your liberating love. May our worship bring us to an encounter with the holiness and the life of your justice. Amen.
Shine on, God, shine on. Teach us love, we pray. Send us out to spread your love and grace, and maybe there'll be peace someday. Shine on, God, shine on. Teach us love, we pray. Send us out to spread your love and grace, and maybe there'll be peace someday.
Thanks, Robin.
Thanks, Robin.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you, Robin.
Fabulous job, Robin. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. It was an amazing job.
Thank you, Robin.
You were muted.
That's a great message.
Am I muted?
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
It's good to see all of you today. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you, Nancy. It's great seeing you.
And Donna, so good seeing you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's great being here.
Yes, it is.
It is. It's good seeing everyone. Oh, and
John,
there's
it's
Robin
good to see
Jackie.
you.
Hi.
Somehow I got lost during the service and ended up hearing two